I was sitting in a law office when my world collapsed. My hands were shaking as I stared at the document in front of me. Notice of sale, 247 Maple Street. Sellers, Martha and Richard Chen. My parents, they had sold my grandfather's house, the house he left to me. And I knew nothing about it. The worst part? They had forged my signature. Before I tell you what happened next, if you've ever felt betrayed by your own family, hit that subscribe button. This story is going to show you that sometimes justice comes from places you never expect. And I promise, by the end of this video, you'll understand why my grandfather left that special clause. Because he knew. He always knew. My name is Harper Chen. I'm 29 years old and I teach second grade at Lincoln Elementary. I've never been the favourite child. That title always belonged to my older brother Marcus. He's a cardiothoracic surgeon, drives a BMW, lives in a house with a 3-car garage. Everything my parents ever wanted. Me, I chose teaching. I chose kids with gap-toothed smiles and scraped knees over a 6-figure salary. My parents never forgave me for that choice, but there was one person who never made me feel small, my grandfather, William Chen. Every Saturday afternoon from the time I was 7 until I turned 26, I would drive to 247 Maple Street. That's where Grandpa lived, in a 2-story colonial with white shutters and a wraparound porch. The house had good bones, he used to say. He built it himself in 1968, right after he came back from Vietnam. We had our routine. I'd pull up around 2, and he'd already be in the garden, wearing his faded Marine's cap and dirt-streaked jeans. We'd work in the vegetable patch together, our hands deep in the soil. He taught me how to grow tomatoes, the kind that taste like summer. He showed me how to stake the plants just right, how to pinch off the suckers so all the energy went into the fruit. Harper girl, he'd say, wiping his forehead with his forearm, this house has a soul. I put every piece of myself into these walls. It'll always be here for you. I believed him. While we worked, he'd tell me stories about the war, about building this house with his own 2 hands, about my grandmother before she passed. He never talked down to me, never treated me like I was less than. With Grandpa, I was enough. I was always enough. My parents' house was different. Dinner at their place was quiet, tense. My mother would serve pot roast and mashed potatoes, and everyone would eat in silence. Marcus would talk about his latest surgery, and my parents would beam with pride. When they asked about my day, it was perfunctory. "That's nice, dear," my mother would say, already clearing the plates before I finished answering. I learned to make myself small in that house. I learned that my accomplishments didn't matter as much. The breaking point came when I was 19. I'd just finished my freshman year at State, and I declared my major, elementary education. My father called a family meeting. We sat in their formal living room, the one with the cream-coloured furniture that no one was allowed to sit on except for special occasions. Apparently, crushing your daughter's dreams counted as special. "Harper," my father said, his voice tight, "we need to talk about your future." "I know what I want to do, Dad. I want to teach." My mother made a sound, something between a sigh and a scoff. "Honey, teaching it's not a real career. The money, I don't care about the money." "Well, you should," my father snapped. "We didn't pay for your education so you could babysit other people's children." Marcus, sitting across from me, stayed silent. he didn't defend me. He never did. What about pre-med? My mother tried. You could still switch. Marcus could help you. I don't want to be a doctor. I want to teach. My father stood up. Then you're on your own. If you're going to throw your life away, don't expect us to support it. I felt like I'd been slapped. Dad! You're a disappointment, Harper. Those words, I can still hear them sharp and cold. I graduated 3 years later with my teaching degree. Top of my class. I'd paid my own way through school, worked 2 jobs, survived on ramen and determination. My graduation was on a sunny May afternoon. I wore my cap and gown and I searched the crowd for my parents. They weren't there. Marcus sent a text. Congrats, sis. Mum and Dad had a thing. A thing. My college graduation was less important than a thing. But Grandpa was there, front row, centre seat. When they called my name, he stood up and clapped so loud that people turned to look. After the ceremony, he pulled me into a hug that smelled like Old Spice and motor oil. I'm so proud of you, Harper girl, he said, his voice thick. Don't you ever let anyone tell you you're not good enough. You hear me? I nodded against his shoulder, trying not to cry. You're going to change lives, sweetheart. Those kids are lucky to have you. That moment is burned into my memory. Grandpa saw me, really saw me. 3 years ago, everything changed. Grandpa was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors gave him 6 months. I spent every evening at 247 Maple Street. I'd come straight from school, still wearing my teacher clothes, and sit with him. We'd watch game shows and old westerns. I'd heat up soup. Even though he barely ate, some days he was lucid and we'd talk about everything. Other days, the pain medication made him drift. My parents visited twice a week, always together, always businesslike. They'd discuss his medications, his care plan, his assets. Marcus came even less. Too busy at the hospital, he said. One afternoon, about 2 weeks before Grandpa died, I was alone with him. He was having a good day, more alert than usual. He reached for my hand. Harper, I need to tell you something. What is it, Grandpa? I'm leaving you the house. I started to protest, but he squeezed my hand. Listen to me, your parents, they're going to be angry. Marcus too. But this house, it's yours. I'm putting it in writing. You're the only one who ever understood what this place means. Grandpa, I don't... Yes, you do. You know every corner of this house. You helped me fix the porch railing. You planted those tomatoes. This house has your heart in it, just like it has mine. Tears were streaming down my face. I love you. I love you too, Harper girl, and I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't let them take this from you. No matter what happens, you fight for it. You hear me? I promise. He died on a Tuesday morning. I was at school teaching my second graders about butterflies when I got the call. I drove to the hospital, but I was too late. My parents were already there, dry-eyed and efficient. Marcus was in the hallway on his phone. I went into Grandpa's room alone. He looked peaceful, finally free from pain. I held his hand and told him all the things I should have said more often. That he was my hero, that he made me feel brave, that I'd never forget him. The funeral was 3 days later. My parents planned everything without asking my input. It was formal, stiff, nothing like Grandpa would have wanted. During the service, I sat in the front row and sobbed. My mother put a hand on my shoulder once, briefly, then pulled away. Too much emotion made her uncomfortable. After the burial, we went to the lawyer's office for the reading of the will. I'd never been to one before. We sat around a conference table. Me, my parents, Marcus, and Grandpa's attorney, Michael Reeves. He was older, maybe mid-50s, with silver hair and kind eyes. Mr. Reeves opened a leather folder and began reading. There were small bequests, some money to his VFW post, his war medals to a museum, savings bonds to Marcus. Then he got to the house. To my granddaughter, Harper Elizabeth Chen, I leave my home at 247 Maple Street, along with all its contents and the land on which it stands. The room went dead silent. My mother's face turned white, then red. My father's jaw clenched. Marcus sat back in his chair, arms crossed, looking like a petulant child. "That can't be right," my mother said. "William wouldn't It was very clear, Mrs. Chen," Mr. Reeves said calmly. The house goes to Harper." "She's 26 years old," my father snapped. "She's a school teacher. She doesn't have the resources to maintain a property like that." Nevertheless, those were Mr. Chen's wishes. Marcus finally spoke. "This is ridiculous. Harper doesn't know the first thing about estate management. Dad, we should contest this." "There are no grounds for contestation," Mr. Reeves said. "The will was properly executed and witnessed." My mother turned to me, her voice sharp. "Harper, you need to understand, your grandfather wasn't thinking clearly at the end. The medication—" "He was perfectly clear," I said quietly. "He told me about this 2 weeks before he died." "You knew," Marcus's voice was accusing, "and you didn't say anything?" "He asked me not to." "Of course he did," my mother muttered, "always trying to cause drama." That hurt. Even in death, Grandpa was being painted as the bad guy for loving me. We left the lawyer's office in silence. In the parking lot, my father finally spoke. "Harper, we need to discuss the logistics of this situation." "What logistics?" "The house, the property taxes, the utilities, the maintenance. You can't afford any of that on a teacher's salary." "I'll figure it out." "Be reasonable," my mother said. "Let us help you. We can hold on to the paperwork, manage things until you're ready." I should have said no. I should have walked away right then, but I was grieving, exhausted, and a part of me still wanted their approval, still wanted them to love me the way Grandpa had. "Okay," I said, "just temporarily." "Of course," my father said, "just until you get settled." Over the next few weeks, they had me sign papers. Power of attorney, they said, just for the house, just to make things easier. I signed. I trusted them. That was my first mistake. The next 3 years were strange. I kept teaching, kept living in my small apartment across town. I'd drive by 247 Maple Street sometimes just to see it. The house looked the same from the outside, but I wasn't living there. My parents said it needed work, repairs that I couldn't afford. They said they were handling it. I should have asked more questions. They started erasing me from family events. Last Christmas, they had a family meeting at 247 Maple Street to discuss estate matters. I only found out about it when Marcus posted photos on Facebook. The whole family was there. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone except me. I called my mother. Why wasn't I invited? "Oh, honey, it was just boring legal stuff. We didn't want to bore you." "It's my house." "Technically, yes, but you know how complicated these things are. We're just trying to protect your interests." For Marcus's birthday last month, they threw a huge party. At 247 Maple Street, my house. I saw the photos online. catered food, a DJ, people I didn't know standing in Grandpa's living room. I wasn't invited to that either. When I confronted my mother, she was dismissive. Marcus wanted to celebrate at a nice venue. You wouldn't have been comfortable anyway. It was a very adult party. Translation, I wasn't sophisticated enough for their crowd. Then, last month, everything came crashing down. I was driving home from a teacher conference, taking the long way past Maple Street. It was habit, something I did when I missed Grandpa. I'd drive slowly past the house, look at the windows, remember the afternoons we spent in the garden. But this time, there was a sign in the front yard, a real estate sign. Sold in bright red letters. I slammed on the brakes, pulled over and stared. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Sold? How could it be sold? It was my house. I called my mother immediately. She answered on the third ring, her voice light and pleasant. Harper, hello, what's up? Mom, I just drove past Maple Street. There's a sold sign in the yard. Silence. Mom? Oh, that. Yes, we were going to tell you. Tell me what? Did you sell Grandpa's house? Harper, honey? You're getting emotional again. This is exactly why we didn't involve you. You're too attached. Too attached? Mom, it's my house. Technically, yes, but Harper, be realistic. You couldn't afford the upkeep. The roof needed replacing. The electrical system was outdated. We found a lovely family who made a very fair offer. We're going to split the proceeds. You can't split proceeds from selling my house. I didn't agree to this. Sweetheart, you signed the power of attorney. We've been managing the property for 3 years. This is what's best. I want to see the paperwork. I want to see the sales contract. Harper, you're not a lawyer. You don't understand these things. Trust us. We're doing what's right for everyone. I'm coming over, right now. That's not a good idea. I hung up and drove straight to my parents' house. It was dusk and the lights were on inside. I could see my father through the window, reading the paper. Marcus's car was in the driveway. I rang the doorbell, knocked, rang again. Marcus opened the door, but only halfway. He blocked the entrance with his body. Harper, what are you doing here? I need to talk to Mom and Dad about the house. This isn't a good time. Marcus, they sold my house without telling me. I think that makes it a good time. Look, sis, I get that you're upset, but you need to calm down. You're being dramatic. Dramatic? They sold property that doesn't belong to them. My father appeared behind Marcus. Harper, lower your voice. The neighbours can hear you. I don't care about the neighbours. You sold Grandpa's house. We made a financial decision, my father said coldly, the kind that adults make. You gave us power of attorney. We acted within our rights. I want to see the sales contract. I want to see my signature. You don't need to see anything, my mother said, joining them in the doorway. This is a family matter, Harper. Stop making a scene. I am family. Then act like it, Marcus said. Stop causing problems. I'm causing problems. You sold my house behind my back. This conversation is over, my father said. Go home, Harper. We'll discuss this when you've calmed down. The door closed in my face. I stood there on their porch, shaking with anger and grief. I could hear them inside, their voices muffled. They were probably talking about me, about how unreasonable I was being, how emotional. I drove home in a daze. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight that my knuckles were white. I kept replaying the conversation. They'd sold my house, the house Grandpa left me, the house where we'd planted tomatoes and watched game shows and talked about life, and they acted like I was the problem. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about Grandpa, about what he'd said. Don't let them take this from you. No matter what happens, you fight for it. I'd failed him. I'd let them take everything. But then I remembered something else. Mr. Reeves, the lawyer. He'd seemed genuinely kind at the will reading. He'd handled Grandpa's estate. Maybe he could help. The next morning I called his office before school. His secretary put me through immediately. Harper? Mr. Reeves sounded concerned. Is everything all right? No, my parents sold my grandfather's house without my permission. There was a long pause. Can you come to my office today? I teach until 3. 4 o'clock? I'll be there. I spent the day in a fog. My second graders were doing a unit on community helpers, and normally I loved this lesson, but today I couldn't focus. I kept thinking about 247 Maple Street, about the garden, about Grandpa's hands, weathered and strong, showing me how to tie up tomato plants. At 4 on the dot, I walked into Mr. Reeves's office. He stood to greet me, shaking my hand with both of his. Harper, I've been expecting this call, he said. Please sit down. You've been expecting it? Your parents contacted me about 6 months ago. They wanted to discuss selling the property. I told them they needed your express written consent. Apparently, they found another way. He opened a file drawer and pulled out a thick folder. My grandfather's name was written on the tab. When your grandfather made his will, he was very specific about his wishes. He loved you very much, Harper. He talked about you constantly. My eyes were already burning with tears. I loved him too. He knew your family dynamics. He knew there might be complications, so he took precautions. Mr. Reeves opened the folder and pulled out a document. This is Appendix C of your grandfather's will. It wasn't read aloud at the initial reading because it was meant to be private, between you, me, and the court. He slid the document across the desk. I picked it up with trembling hands. Appendix C for Harper Chen only was typed at the top. I read slowly, my heart pounding. If any person attempts to sell, transfer, or otherwise dispose of the property located at 247 Maple Street without the direct, private, and written consent of Harper Elizabeth Chen, obtained in person and witnessed by attorney Michael Reeves or his designated successor, the following shall occur. First, the sale shall be declared void and the property shall revert entirely to Harper Elizabeth Chen with all rights and privileges thereof. Second, any proceeds from said attempted sale shall be forfeited. Third, Harper Elizabeth Chen shall immediately receive full access to the trust account established in her name, currently valued at approximately $850,000, to be used for property maintenance, legal fees, and personal use as she sees fit. I had to read it 3 times before the words sank in. There's a trust account. My voice was barely a whisper. Your grandfather was a careful man. He saved for decades. The trust was meant to ensure you'd never have to worry about maintaining the house. He knew your parents might try something like this. $850,000? Approximately. It's been growing with interest. I felt dizzy. Mr. Reeves, my parents, they had me sign a power of attorney. I know, they showed me the paperwork, but it doesn't matter. The Appendix C clause supersedes any power of attorney. Your grandfather made sure of that. So the sale is invalid. And now that they've attempted to sell without your direct consent, The conditions of Appendix C are triggered. The house is entirely yours, and you have immediate access to the trust fund. I started crying, big, ugly sobs that I couldn't control. Mr. Reeves pushed a box of tissues across the desk and waited patiently. I thought I'd lost everything, I managed to say. I thought they'd won. Your grandfather loved you very much, Harper. He wanted to make sure you'd be taken care of, and he wanted to make sure no one could take advantage of you. What happens now? The closing is scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. Your parents, the buyers and I will all be there. I'm going to need you to be there too. To stop the sale? To watch it collapse. Mr. Reeves's expression was grim but determined. Your parents forged your signature on the sales contract. That's fraud. It's also a criminal offence. When I present Appendix C tomorrow, the buyers will withdraw immediately. No one wants to be involved in a fraudulent transaction. My parents could go to jail? That's up to you. You could press charges. But at minimum, they'll be publicly humiliated and the sale will be voided. I thought about it. About all the years of being made to feel small. About being excluded, dismissed, told I was too emotional, too dramatic, not good enough. About them selling my house behind my back. I'll be there tomorrow, I said, 10 a.m. Good. Harper, I want you to prepare yourself. This is going to be ugly. Your parents are going to be very angry. I know. They might say things that hurt. They already have. Mr. Reeves nodded slowly. Your grandfather told me once that you were the strongest person he knew. He said you had a steel core, even if you didn't know it yet. Tomorrow, you're going to need that strength. I'll be ready. That night, I went through old photo albums. Pictures of me and Grandpa in the garden, both of us covered in dirt and grinning. Pictures of us on the porch, drinking lemonade. A photo from my college graduation, just the two of us, his arm around my shoulders. In every picture, I was smiling, really smiling. Not the tight, fake smile I wore in family photos with my parents. With Grandpa, I was happy. He'd protected me, even after death. He'd seen this coming and made sure I'd be okay. I set my alarm for 6 a.m. I needed to look professional tomorrow. Needed to walk into that office with my head high. The next morning I put on my best dress, the navy blue one I wore to parent-teacher conferences. I did my makeup carefully, straightened my hair. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognised myself. I looked older, stronger. I looked like someone who wasn't going to back down. I arrived at the attorney's office at 9:45. Mr. Reeves was waiting in the lobby. Ready? He asked. Ready. We walked to the conference room together. Through the vast walls, I could see my parents, Marcus and a couple I didn't recognise, the buyers presumably, David and Linda Morrison, according to the nameplate on the table. My father saw me first. His eyes widened, then narrowed. My mother's mouth formed a thin line. Marcus looked irritated. I opened the door and walked in. My mother recovered first, her voice falsely bright. Harper, what a surprise. This is just a formality, sweetheart. You didn't need to come to so... Actually... Mr. Reeves said, setting his briefcase on the table. She did. David Morrison stood to shake my hand. He was in his 50s, with grey temples and a friendly smile. You must be Harper. We've heard so much about this beautiful house. We're excited to make it our home. I felt a pang of guilt. These people had done nothing wrong. They were innocent in all this. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, I said carefully, I'm very sorry, but there's been a mistake. Linda Morrison frowned. A mistake? My father cut in. Harper, what are you doing? Stopping the sale of my house. Your house? Marcus laughed, sharp and mean. Harper, come on, you can't even afford to maintain it. Marcus, please, my mother said. She turned to the Morrisons with an apologetic smile. My daughter is going through a difficult time. She was very close to her grandfather, and she's having trouble letting go. That's not what this is, I said. Mr. Reeves stepped forward. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Michael Reeves, the attorney who executed William Chen's will. I'm afraid this transaction cannot proceed. Richard's face darkened. Reeves, we've been through this. We have power of attorney. The sale is legal. Actually, it's not. Mr. Reeves placed a thick folder on the table. This is Appendix C of Mr. William Chen's will. It contains specific instructions regarding the property at 247 Maple Street. He opened the folder and began reading. As he spoke, I watched my parents' faces change. My mother went pale. My father's jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles jumping. Marcus looked stunned. David Morrison held up a hand. Wait. You're saying the house can't be sold without Harper's direct consent? Correct, and that consent must be obtained in person, with me as witness. But we have her signature, my father said, right here on the contract. Mr. Reeves pulled out another document. This is Harper's actual signature from her teaching certification. And this, he placed the sales contract next to it, is the signature on your contract. They don't match. The room went silent. Linda Morrison leaned forward, studying the signatures. They're completely different. That's because it's a forgery, Mr. Reeves said calmly. We did not forge anything, my mother said, but her voice shook. Harper signed. I never signed that contract, I said. My voice was steady, stronger than I felt. I never agreed to sell the house. David Morrison stood up. I'm sorry, but if there's any question about the legality of this sale, we're withdrawing our offer. Now wait a minute, my father started. No. Linda Morrison was gathering her purse, her face pale. We're not getting involved in fraud. David, we're leaving. This is ridiculous, Marcus shouted. Harper, you're ruining everything. I'm not ruining anything. You did that when you forged my signature. We were trying to help you by stealing my house. It wasn't stealing, my mother said desperately. We were managing your assets. You couldn't handle it. You're a school teacher, for God's sake. You don't understand property law. But I understand that you committed fraud. The Morrisons were at the door. David turned back, his expression cold. Mrs. Chen, I have to say I'm appalled. You forged your own daughter's signature for a house that her grandfather left her? My mother's eyes filled with tears. Not real tears, I realised. Performance tears. You don't understand. Harper isn't capable of managing a property like this. We were protecting her. You were stealing from her, Linda Morrison said flatly. Come on, David. They left. The silence that followed was deafening. My father turned to me, and for the first time in my life I saw real hatred in his eyes. I hope you're happy. You just destroyed this family. I didn't destroy anything. You did that yourselves. Everything we've done has been for your benefit. For my benefit? You sold my house without telling me. Because you couldn't make the hard decisions, my mother shouted. All pretense of composure was gone. You've always been weak, Harper. You've always needed us to take care of you. Your grandfather spoiled you, made you think you were special, but you're not. You're just a mediocre teacher with delusions of grandeur. The words should have hurt. A year ago, they would have destroyed me. But standing there with Mr. Reeves beside me and Grandpa's Appendix C in my hand, I felt nothing but pity. I may be a teacher, I said quietly, but at least I'm not a thief. Marcus stepped forward. Oh, you ungrateful... That's enough, Mr. Reeves said sharply. Harper, you don't need to stay for this. The sale is voided. The house remains yours, and you now have access to your trust fund. Trust fund? My father said. What trust fund, mister? Reeves smiled thinly. The $850,000 trust that Mr. William Chen established for Harper's use. It's all detailed in Appendix C. Perhaps you should have read the entire will more carefully. I watched the realization hit them. $850,000. Money that could have been theirs if they'd just been patient, if they'd just been kind. My mother sank into a chair. William left her that much money? He wanted to ensure she'd never be vulnerable to people who might take advantage of her, Mr. Reeves said pointedly. He was very wise. Harper, my father said, and his voice had changed. Softer now, almost pleading. We can work this out. We're family. No, I said. Family doesn't forge signatures. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't make you feel worthless your entire life. We never... My mother started. Yes, you did. My entire childhood you made me feel like I wasn't good enough. Like Marcus was the golden child and I was just there, taking up space, being disappointing. That's not fair, Marcus said, isn't it? When was the last time either of you came to my classroom? When was the last time you asked about my students, my life, anything that mattered to me? You didn't come to my graduation, Mum. Dad called me a disappointment to my face. My father had the grace to look away. And now you tried to take the one thing Grandpa left me. The one place where I felt loved and valued. You couldn't even let me have that. What are you going to do? My mother asked. Press charges. I looked at Mr. Reeves. He gave me a small nod. It was my decision. I don't know yet, I said honestly, but I know I'm done trying to win your approval. I'm done making myself small so you can feel big. Grandpa loved me exactly as I am, and that's enough. I picked up my purse and walked toward the door. Before I left, I turned back one last time. The house is mine. The trust is mine, and if any of you try to contact me, I'll get a restraining order. Stay away from 247 Maple Street. Stay away from me. Then I walked out, Mr. Reeves beside me. In the parking lot, I finally let myself breathe. The adrenaline was wearing off and my hands were shaking again. You did well in there, Mr. Reeves said. I thought I'd feel better. I thought I'd feel vindicated. And how do you feel? Sad. They're my family. They're supposed to love me. Love and family aren't always the same thing, Mr. Reeves said gently. Your grandfather understood that. That's why he made sure you'd be protected. What happens now? Now you take possession of your house. We'll transfer the trust funds to your account. You'll be financially comfortable, Harper. Very comfortable. Your grandfather made sure of that. I don't even know what to do with that much money. You'll figure it out. And I'll help you if you want. Setting up accounts, managing investments, all the practical things. Thank you for everything. It's what your grandfather would have wanted. I drove to 247 Maple Street. The sold sign was still in the yard. I walked up to it and yanked it out of the ground. The wood splintered in my hands, but I didn't care. I stood in the driveway looking at the house. Grandpa's house, my house. The white shutters needed painting. The porch steps creaked, but the bones were good. Grandpa had built it to last. I sat down on those creaky porch steps and finally let myself cry. Not sad tears exactly, relief maybe, or grief, or some complicated mixture of both. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. "We need to talk. This doesn't have to be ugly." I deleted it without responding. Another text from Marcus. "You're tearing this family apart." Delete. My father. "Call me. We can work this out." Delete, delete, delete. I turned my phone off and sat in the silence. A breeze rustled through the oak tree in the front yard. The one Grandpa had planted when I was born. 29 years old, that tree, same age as me. We'd both survived. We were both still standing. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. 2 weeks after the failed closing, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. I'd changed my number twice, but somehow they kept finding me. My mother, my father, Marcus, even aunts and uncles I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions about my selfishness. I didn't answer any of them. I was standing in the kitchen at 247 Maple Street, the kitchen where Grandpa had taught me how to make his famous chili, when my doorbell rang. I'd moved in 3 days ago sleeping on an air mattress because most of my furniture was still in storage. The house felt empty without Grandpa's presence, but it also felt like mine in a way nothing else ever had. I looked through the peephole. My mother stood on the porch holding a casserole dish. She was wearing her church clothes and had clearly been crying. Or wanted me to think she'd been crying. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "Harper," she said, her voice trembling, "can we talk?" "I don't think that's a good idea." "Please, just 5 minutes. I brought your favourite green bean casserole." It wasn't my favourite. It was Marcus's favourite. She couldn't even get that right. "Mum, I asked you not to contact me. I'm your mother. I can't just stop caring about you." Her eyes welled with tears. "Harper, we made mistakes. I see that now, but we were trying to protect you." "By stealing from me?" "We weren't stealing, we were managing. You have to understand, when Dad died, there were so many expenses. The funeral, the estate taxes. We used some of the house equity to cover those costs. We were going to pay you back." "That's not how it works. The house wasn't yours to use as collateral." "But we're family. Family helps each other." I almost laughed. "When have you ever helped me, Mum? When have you ever chosen me over Marcus? When have you ever made me feel like I mattered? That's not fair. We've always loved you both equally." "That's a lie, and you know it." My mother's expression shifted. The tears dried up instantly. "You're being incredibly selfish right now. Your father and I are drowning in debt because of your grandfather's funeral expenses. Marcus has student loans from medical school. We needed that house sale to happen." "Then you should have asked me. Honestly. Instead of forging my signature. We knew you'd say no. You've always been too emotional about that house." "It was mine to be emotional about." My mother set the casserole dish down on the porch railing with more force than necessary. "Fine, you want to play hardball? Your father is talking to his lawyer about suing you for the money we put into maintaining that house for 3 years. We have receipts for every repair, every utility bill. You owe us, Harper. Take it up with Mr. Reeves. He'll be happy to explain why that won't work." "You've become cruel," my mother said, her voice cold now. All pretense of reconciliation gone. "I don't even recognize you." "Good. Maybe you never really knew me at all." She picked up her casserole and walked back to her car without another word. I watched her drive away, and I felt nothing, no guilt, no sadness, just a strange, hollow relief. But she was right about one thing. Other people were calling. My Aunt Patricia left a voicemail saying I was breaking my grandmother's heart. My Uncle Ron sent an email with the subject line, "Family Loyalty." A cousin I hadn't seen since I was 12 messaged me on Facebook. "Your parents are good people. You should be ashamed." I blocked them all. 3 days later, Marcus showed up. He didn't bring food or tears. He brought anger. "You need to fix this," he said, pushing past me into the house. "Get out, Marcus." "Not until we talk." He looked around the living room at my air mattress and the few boxes I'd unpacked. "This is pathetic. You're living like a college student." "I just moved in. What do you want?" "I want you to stop being vindictive. Mum is having panic attacks. Dad hasn't slept in a week. You're destroying them." "I'm not doing anything to them. They did this to themselves." "By trying to help you? By managing a property you couldn't afford?" "By committing fraud, Marcus. They forged my signature. That's a crime." "You're really going to send our parents to jail over a house?" "I haven't decided yet." Marcus laughed, sharp and bitter. "You haven't decided. Listen to yourself. You sound insane. This house has made you crazy, just like it made Grandpa crazy." "Don't talk about him like that." "Why not?" "He was a bitter old man who played favourites and pitted his family against each other. He left you that house to cause problems, to punish Mom and Dad for some imagined slight. He left me the house because he loved me, because I was the only one who ever spent time with him. Because you didn't have anything better to do. I was saving lives, Harper. I couldn't waste every weekend gardening and watching Jeopardy." "It wasn't a waste. It was a relationship. It was love. But you wouldn't understand that." Marcus stepped closer, his voice dropping to something dangerous. "You know what I think? I think you're enjoying this. You've spent your whole life being the victim, being the disappointment, and now you finally have something we want. It makes you feel powerful." His words hit closer than I wanted to admit. Was there truth in that? Was some part of me enjoying their desperation? "Get out," I said again. "You're making a huge mistake. When you're old and alone, don't come crying to us. You'll have your precious house, but you won't have a family." I never really had a family anyway. Marcus's face flushed red. "You ungrateful! Leave now, or I'm calling the police." He stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not just anger, hatred. "You're dead to me," he said quietly. "You and your pathetic little life, teaching other people's kids because you'll never have your own. Living in this tomb of a house because you can't let go of a dead man. You're pathetic, Harper, and you always will be." He walked out, slamming the door so hard that a picture frame fell off the wall. Glass shattered across the hardwood floor. I knelt down to clean it up, and that's when I finally broke. Not crying, something deeper. A keening sound came out of my throat, something animal and raw. I sat on the floor, surrounded by broken glass, and I let myself feel all of it. The grief, the betrayal, the loneliness. My phone buzzed. Another message. But this one was different. It was from my friend Nora, one of the other second grade teachers at Lincoln Elementary. We'd been work friends for 2 years, coffee in the teacher's lounge friends, but not much more than that. "Hey, I heard what happened with your family. If you need anything, I'm here." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I did something I never did. I asked for help. "Can you come over?" She showed up 30 minutes later with wine, Chinese takeout, and a toolkit. "You've got a broken picture frame, your front step is loose. And I'm guessing you have approximately 0 furniture," she said, pushing past me into the house. "Also, you look like hell. When's the last time you ate?" "I don't know. Tuesday." "It's Friday, Harper." She set the food on the kitchen counter and pulled out plates from a box I hadn't unpacked yet. "Okay, here's what's going to happen. We're going to eat, you're going to tell me everything, and then we're going to make a plan." "A plan for what?" "For your life. For this house. For telling your family to screw themselves in the most legally satisfying way possible." I laughed. Actually laughed. It felt strange, like a muscle I hadn't used in weeks. "Over lo mein and spring rolls." I told her everything. The will, the forged signature, the trust fund, the confrontation at the lawyer's office. Nora listened without interrupting, occasionally refilling my wine glass. "So, let me get this straight," she said when I finished. "Your grandfather left you a house and almost $1 million. Your parents tried to steal both, and now they're mad that you stopped them. Basically. And you feel guilty about this?" "I don't know. They're my parents. Marcus said I'm tearing the family apart." "Harper, they tore the family apart the moment they forged your signature. Nothing that's happening now is your fault." "But what if he's right? What if I'm being vindictive?" "Are you pressing charges?" "Not yet. Mr. Reeves says I have up to 3 years to decide." "Then you're not being vindictive. You're being smart. You're protecting yourself." Nora reached across the table and took my hand. "Listen to me. Your family is toxic. I've watched you for 2 years, always making yourself smaller, always apologizing for taking up space. I never understood why until now. I just want them to love me. They can't. They don't know how. And that's not your fault, Harper. That's their failure, not yours." We finished the wine. Nora helped me unpack boxes and hang pictures. She fixed the loose porch step with her toolkit. By midnight, the house looked more like a home and less like a way station. "Thank you," I said as she was leaving. "That's what friends do, real friends, not the family obligation kind." She paused at the door. "Harper, promise me something. Promise me you won't let them make you feel guilty. You deserve this house. You deserve that money. You deserve to be happy." I promise. But keeping that promise was harder than I thought. Over the next few weeks, the messages kept coming. My parents sent lawyers' letters demanding reimbursement for property maintenance. Marcus spread rumours at the hospital where he worked, telling people I'd stolen my grandfather's estate from my grieving family. Cousins unfriended me on social media. My aunt sent a Christmas card with a long note about healing family wounds and being the bigger person. I threw it away. The hardest part wasn't the attacks. It was the quiet moments when I'd remember good times. My mother teaching me to bake cookies when I was 6. My father pushing me on a swing at the park. Marcus letting me sleep in his room during a thunderstorm when I was scared. Those moments had been real, hadn't they? Or had I just been desperate enough to see love in any small kindness? One evening, about a month after the failed closing, I was in Grandpa's garden. Our garden. I'd spent the afternoon clearing out weeds and dead plants from last season. The tomato plants were gone, winter killed, but I planned to plant new ones in the spring. I was on my knees in the dirt when my phone rang, when my unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Harper Chen, a woman's voice, professional and cool. Yes? This is Jennifer Walsh from the District Attorney's Office. I'm calling about a fraud case involving your parents, Martha and Richard Chen. Do you have a few minutes to talk? My heart started pounding. I haven't pressed charges. I know, but the buyers of the property, David and Linda Morrison, filed a complaint. They were almost party to a fraudulent transaction. We're investigating and we'd like your cooperation. What does that mean? It means we'd like you to come in and give a statement. We have the forged documents, but your testimony would strengthen the case. And if I don't? Then we proceed without you. But Harper, I want you to understand something. Forgery is a felony. Your parents could face serious consequences. Prison time, potentially. I felt sick. How much time? Up to 5 years, depending on the circumstances. I need to think about it. Of course, but I need an answer by Monday. The Morrisons want justice, and frankly, so do I. This kind of elder financial abuse it wasn't elder abuse. My grandfather was already dead. Inheritance fraud, then. The point stands. Will you help us? I'll call you Monday. I hung up and sat in the dirt, staring at the dead tomato plants. 5 years. My parents could go to prison for 5 years because of me. No, not because of me, because they committed a crime. But they were still my parents. I called Mr. Reeves. Harper, how are you settling in? The DA called. They want me to testify against my parents. He was quiet for a moment. The Morrisons filed a complaint. I expected this. What should I do? That's not a legal question, Harper. That's a moral one. Only you can answer it. If I testify, they could go to prison. If you don't testify, they might anyway. The Morrisons have documentation, the forged signatures. They have a strong case. But without my testimony, it's weaker, but not impossible. Harper, I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you what your grandfather would say. What? He'd tell you to protect yourself first. He'd tell you that real family doesn't ask you to sacrifice your peace for their comfort. I spent the whole weekend thinking. I didn't eat much, didn't sleep, just wandered around the house, touching Grandpa's things, his reading chair, his coffee mug, the photo albums full of our Saturday afternoons. On Sunday evening, Nora came over again. You look terrible, she said. The DA wants me to testify. My parents could go to prison. And you're torn. They're my parents, Nora. How can I send my parents to prison? They sent themselves there the moment they forged your signature. You're not doing anything except telling the truth. But everyone will hate me. The whole family. They already think I'm a monster. Harper, sit down. She pulled me onto the couch. I'm going to tell you something my therapist told me when I cut off my toxic mother. You ready? I nodded. Their reaction to you setting boundaries is not your responsibility. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You are allowed to choose yourself. But it feels selfish. Self-preservation isn't selfish, it's necessary. What would you do? I can't answer that, but I can tell you what I see. I see a woman who's been emotionally abused her entire life, who's been told she's not good enough, not smart enough, too emotional, too disappointing. And the one person who loved her unconditionally left her a gift, a house and financial security, and her family tried to steal it. That's not love, Harper. That's exploitation. So you think I should testify? I think you should do whatever lets you sleep at night. But don't do it out of guilt. They've controlled you with guilt your whole life. Don't let them do it anymore. Monday morning, I called Jennifer Walsh. I'll testify, I said. Tell me when and where. Thank you, Harper. You're doing the right thing. I wasn't sure about that, but I was sure about one thing. I was done being a victim. The deposition was scheduled for 2 weeks later. In the meantime, my parents made one last attempt at reconciliation, or what they called reconciliation. They showed up at the house together, dressed formally like they were going to court, which I suppose they were preparing to do. My father did the talking. Harper, we need to resolve this situation before it gets out of hand. It's already out of hand, Dad. You committed fraud. We made a mistake. We're willing to admit that. But prison time, that's excessive. We're your parents. You should have thought about that before you forged my signature. My mother spoke up, her voice brittle. We'll agree to family therapy. We'll pay you back every penny from the house sale. We'll do whatever it takes. Just don't testify. Why should I trust anything you say? Because we're family, my father said. Family forgives. Family moves forward. Family doesn't steal from each other. We weren't stealing. We were managing. I know, you keep saying that, but managing would have involved actually talking to me, getting my real consent, not forging my name on legal documents. Harper, please. My mother was crying now. Real tears this time, I thought. I can't go to prison. Your father and I, we'd be destroyed. Our reputations, our lives, everything we've built. What about everything Grandpa built? What about what he wanted for me? He didn't know what he wanted at the end. The cancer affected his judgment. Stop saying that. Grandpa was perfectly lucid when he wrote his will. Mr. Reeves confirmed it. There were multiple witnesses. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was trying to punish us, my father said, and for the first time I heard real pain in his voice. For not being the kind of father he wanted, for working too much, for not being around enough when I was young. He always resented me, and he took it out on us by leaving everything to you. Or maybe he just loved me. Did that ever occur to you? That someone could love me not to hurt you, but just because I was worth loving? My mother flinched. Please, my father said again, just talk to the DA. Tell them you don't want to press charges. Tell them it was all a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding. You knew exactly what you were doing. We'll give you anything you want, my mother said desperately. Money, jewelry. We'll never contact you again if that's what you want. Just don't send us to prison. I looked at them, really looked at them. My father, who'd called me a disappointment. My mother, who'd never come to my graduation. The people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, but had only ever loved me with conditions I could never meet. I can't help you, I said. The Morrisons already filed a complaint. It's out of my hands. You could refuse to testify. I could, but I'm not going to. My father's face went hard. Then you've chosen your side. You've chosen a dead man and a house over your living family. No, You chose your greed over your daughter. You chose a house sale over your relationship with me. This is your consequence, not my choice." They left without another word. That night, I called Mr. Reeves. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "I don't know. I keep waiting to feel guilty, but I just feel tired." "That's normal. You're grieving not just your grandfather, but the family you wish you had." "Is it wrong that I'm relieved they're gone?" "Not at all. Harper, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've seen a lot of family disputes over estates, but I've never seen anything quite like what your grandfather did with that Appendix C. He knew exactly what was going to happen, and he made sure you'd be protected. I miss him. I know, he was a good man, one of the best I ever knew." "Mr. Reeves, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "When Grandpa made the trust, when he wrote the Appendix C, did he say why? Did he explain why he was leaving everything to me?" There was a long pause. He said, "Harper is the only one who sees me, not what I have, not what I can give them, just me. She deserves to know she was loved." I was crying now, silent tears running down my face. "He wanted you to be free, Harper. Free from obligation, free from guilt, free from people who made you feel small. That was his last gift to you." After we hung up, I walked through the house. Every room held memories. The living room where we'd watched Jeopardy, the kitchen where he'd taught me his chili recipe, the garden where we'd planted tomatoes every spring. But it wasn't a tomb, like Marcus had said. It was a sanctuary. The deposition was straightforward. I told the truth. Yes, that was my house. No, I'd never agreed to sell it. No, that wasn't my signature on the contract. Yes, my parents had been managing the property, but no, they'd never asked for my consent to sell. Jennifer Walsh was gentle but thorough. By the end, I was exhausted. "Thank you, Harper," she said. "I know this wasn't easy." What happens now? We move forward with charges. Your parents will have a chance to accept a plea deal or go to trial. What kind of plea deal? Probably probation, community service, restitution. Prison time is unlikely for first-time offenders, especially at their age. I felt a complicated mix of relief and disappointment. Relief that they probably wouldn't go to prison. Disappointment that they'd probably face no real consequences at all. "The most important thing," Jennifer said, "is that you're protected. They can't touch your house or your trust, and they can't hurt anyone else like this." That was something, at least. The next few months were strange. My parents took a plea deal, 3 years probation, 200 hours of community service, and an order to pay restitution to the Morrisons for their legal fees and time. No prison, but a permanent record. My father lost his position on the hospital board. My mother was quietly asked to step down from her volunteer positions. Marcus stopped speaking to me entirely, deleted me from social media, blocked my number. I heard through Nora, who heard from another teacher whose husband worked at the hospital, that Marcus was telling people I'd had a breakdown, that I'd stolen Grandpa's estate through manipulation and lies. Let him talk. I didn't care anymore. I used some of the trust money to renovate the house. New roof, updated electrical, refinished floors. I kept Grandpa's furniture, but added my own touches. Bookshelves in the living room, a reading nook by the window, a real bed instead of an air mattress. In the spring, I planted tomatoes, the same variety Grandpa had always grown, big boys and early girls. I bought the seedlings from the same nursery we'd always gone to, and the owner, Mrs. Patterson, remembered me. "Harper Chen," she said, smiling. "Haven't seen you in a while. How's your grandfather?" "He passed away 3 years ago." Her face fell. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. He was a good man." "He was, but I'm keeping his garden going. Same tomatoes, same spots." "He'd like that." I worked in that garden every weekend, my hands in the same soil where Grandpa's hands had been. I felt close to him there, in a way I didn't anywhere else. Nora became a real friend, the kind who showed up uninvited with wine and pizza, who dragged me to teacher happy hours, who reminded me I was allowed to be happy. We took a weekend trip to the beach. We went to concerts. We laughed. I'd forgotten what real laughter felt like. At school, I threw myself into teaching. My classroom became a safe space for kids who felt invisible, who struggled, who didn't fit the mould. I got it. I'd been that kid. With the trust money, I set up a scholarship fund, the William Chen Memorial Scholarship. For students who wanted to become teachers but couldn't afford it, the first recipient was a high school senior named Emma who cried when I told her she'd gotten it. "I thought I'd have to give up," she said. "My parents can't help and the loans were too much." "My grandfather believed in people who others overlooked," I told her. "He would have wanted this." A year after the deposition, I was working in the garden when a car pulled up. I didn't recognize it, but when the door opened, I recognized the man who got out. David Morrison, one half of the couple who'd almost bought my house. "Mr. Morrison," I said, standing up and brushing dirt off my jeans. "Harper, I hope this is okay, me stopping by." "It's fine. What can I do for you?" He looked around the property at the fresh paint and new roof. "The place looks great. Your grandfather would be proud." "Thank you." I wanted to apologize. "Linda and we had no idea about the situation with your parents. If we'd known..." "You have nothing to apologize for. You were almost victims too." "Still, we felt terrible. The whole thing, what they did to you, it wasn't right." "No, it wasn't. But I'm okay now." He nodded slowly. "You know, Linda and I found another house. Not as nice as this one, but it suits us. And every time I drive past this street, I think about your grandfather, about how much he must have loved you to protect you like that." "He did. He really did. Anyway, I wanted you to know. We don't have any hard feelings. We're glad it worked out for you." After he left, I sat on the porch steps and looked at the house, my sanctuary, my home. I thought about Grandpa, about the afternoons we'd spent right here, drinking lemonade and talking about everything and nothing. I thought about the Appendix C, his final act of love. He'd known. Somehow he'd known exactly what would happen, and he'd made sure I'd be okay. "Thank you," I whispered to the empty air. "Thank you for seeing me." By the time another year had passed, I'd created a life I actually wanted. The house was filled with light and laughter. Nora and other friends came over for dinner parties. I hosted my students' families for an end-of-year barbecue in the backyard. The tomato plants grew tall and, heavy with fruit, just like Grandpa's always had. I dated someone for a few months, a teacher from a neighbouring school. It didn't work out, but it was nice while it lasted. I was learning that I could be loved, that I was worthy of it. My parents tried to contact me once more on what would have been Grandpa's 85th birthday. My mother sent a card. Inside, she'd written, "Your grandfather would want us to reconcile. He wouldn't want this division in the family." I threw it away without responding. Grandpa had known exactly what he wanted. He'd written it down in legal documents and made it ironclad. He wanted me to be free. Sometimes I still felt guilty. Sometimes I wondered if I should have tried harder, forgiven more, been the bigger person. But then I'd remember what Nora had said. Their reaction to my boundaries wasn't my responsibility. I was allowed to choose myself. 3 years after Grandpa's death, I stood in the garden on a warm June morning. The tomato plants were thriving, heavy with fruit. I picked one, still warm from the sun, and bit into it. It tasted like summer, like Saturday afternoons, like love. I'd invited Nora and a few other friends over for lunch. We were going to eat on the porch, like Grandpa and I used to do. I'd made his famous chili from the recipe he'd written down for me years ago. As I set the table, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not the absence of conflict, but something deeper. The knowledge that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. That I'd fought for myself and won. That the people in my life now were there because they wanted to be, not because they were obligated to be. The doorbell rang. Nora arrived with flowers, followed by other friends carrying dishes and wine. We ate and laughed and told stories. The house, which had been so quiet for so long, was full of sound and life. Later, after everyone had gone home, I sat on the porch with a glass of wine and looked at the stars. In my pocket, I could feel the photo I always carried now. Me and Grandpa in the garden, both of us smiling, covered in dirt. I kept my promise, I said to his memory. I fought for it. I didn't let them take it. A breeze rustled through the oak tree, the one he'd planted when I was born. It sounded almost like a whisper, almost like approval. I'd spent so much of my life trying to earn love from people who were incapable of giving it, trying to be good enough, smart enough, successful enough, making myself smaller so they could feel bigger. But Grandpa had loved me exactly as I was, a second-grade teacher with dirt under her fingernails and big dreams for her students. A woman who valued connection over money, love over status, authenticity over appearance. He'd seen me, really seen me, and he'd made sure I'd be okay. The house wasn't just wood and nails and a good roof. It was proof that I'd been loved, that I'd mattered to someone, that I was worthy of protection and care. My phone buzzed, a text from Nora. Had so much fun today. Your place is becoming my favourite spot. Love you, friend. I smiled and texted back. Love you too. I had a family now. Not the one I was born into, but the one I'd chosen. The one that chose me back. Marcus had been wrong. I wasn't alone. I had a home, a community, work I loved, friends who showed up. I had Grandpa's garden and his recipes and his memory. I had everything I needed. As I got ready for bed that night, I walked through the house, turning off lights. In each room, I felt Grandpa's presence. Not haunting, but comforting. Like he was still here, still watching over me. In the bedroom, I looked at the photo on my nightstand. Me and Grandpa, arms around each other, both of us laughing at something long forgotten. I'm okay, I told him. I'm really okay. And for the first time in my life, I meant it. I turned off the light and lay in bed, listening to the sounds of my house settling around me. The creak of old wood, the whisper of wind through the screens, the steady, reliable heartbeat of a home built with love. Maybe some people would say I was too harsh, that I should have forgiven my parents, given them another chance, that family is family no matter what. But I'd learned something important over the past 3 years. Love isn't obligation. Love isn't guilt. Love isn't sacrificing yourself to make other people comfortable. Real love protects. Real love sees you. Real love gives you room to be exactly who you are. Grandpa had given me that kind of love, and in protecting his final gift to me, I'd learned to give it to myself. That was worth more than any relationship built on guilt and obligation. That was worth everything. I drifted off to sleep in my house, in my room, in my life, the life Grandpa had made possible, the life I'd fought for and won. And in my dreams, I was in the garden again. Grandpa and I planting tomatoes, our hands in the soil. He looked at me and smiled. "You did good, Harper girl. You did real good." When I woke up the next morning, the sun was streaming through the windows. Birds were singing in the oak tree. It was going to be a beautiful day. I got up, made coffee, and walked out to the garden. The tomato plants needed staking. The weeds needed pulling. There was work to do, but it was good work, honest work. The kind that left you tired but satisfied at the end of the day. I knelt in the dirt, right where Grandpa used to kneel, and I got to work. The house behind me stood strong, just like he'd built it to. A sanctuary, a home, mine.